Hello devs, it's Akash from Fire App Dev here, and welcome to part 3 of the series where I teach you how to build a full stack to-do list app from scratch. In the first 2 parts, if you haven't seen that yet, I go through how to build the entire front end, so I highly recommend you go check that out first. And in today's video, we're going to be finally jumping into the back end. I'm going to teach you how to set up the authentication using Firebase, and we're also going to set up a little bit of UI for that. So if that is something you're excited for, stay tuned. Okay, we got a lot we're going to be covering today. First, we're going to start off by installing Firebase. So let's go ahead and type in Expo install Firebase. Let me let that run real quick. Alright, that took way longer than I expected. Next, we're going to install one more small package. Go ahead and type in yarn add validator. This is what we're going to use for our text field validation when we're doing some authentication. And if you're using npm, you can just go ahead and type in npm install validator. I'm just using yarn here. They're both package managers. Give that another minute. Okay, we got everything done installing, so let's just go ahead and start the app. I'm going to run yarn web. If you're using npm, you're going to be running npm run web. Alright, we got the app started. Now, first things first, before we touch anything on the app, let's go ahead and create an account on Firebase. So if you have a Google account, you should already be able to go to console.firebase.google.com and log in. Your recent projects page is probably going to be empty. So just go ahead and click Add Project. And you can name your project whatever you want to. I'm going to name it Fire to Do. And then click Continue. And you don't need to enable Google Analytics for this project. We're not going to be doing anything with that. Actually, let me get rid of the app display so it's easier to see everything. Alright, then create the project. Alright, once it loads, you should see a screen like this. Go ahead and hit Continue. And there you have it. You're already in your Firebase console. So the first thing we're going to set up is authentication. So let's go ahead, hit authentication. We're going to keep it very simple. We're just going to do email password authentication. So go ahead, hit get started. And everything starts off disabled. What you're going to do is go ahead, edit the email/password, and then enable it. Do not enable email link. That's passwordless sign-in. So how that works is you just type in your email. It sends a link to your email, and then you log in using that link rather than a password. We're going to keep it a basic email password system for this. Perfect. We got email and password enabled. Now we got to go do one more thing. So go ahead, hit Project Overview. And then right here, it should say Get Started by adding Firebase to your app. You're going to click the web template right here. You see the little HTML tag. And right here, you want to register your app. You could give it a nickname. I'm going to call it Fire to Do Mobile. You don't need to set up Firebase hosting. Don't check that. And then hit Register App. Next, it's going to give you this config right here. I have it blurred out because I don't want you using my console's resources. But you should see your own API key, auth domain, project ID, storage bucket, messaging ID, and app ID. And you're going to use that to configure your Firebase. So let me show you how to go ahead and do that. Go to VS Code and go to your app.js. First, let's open package.json to make sure everything was installed properly. So we have Firebase right here. And we also have validator right there. So we have everything installed as we need it to. So go back to app.js. And here, you're going to type in import star as Firebase from Firebase. So you're just importing everything in the Firebase package and calling it Firebase. And then you're going to go all the way down to the bottom and type in Firebase.initialize app and Firebase config. That's what you're going to pass in. We haven't created that yet. Go back to your console page and copy your Firebase config. and then paste it right above the Firebase.initialize app. I'm just going to change the var right here to const because we're not really going to be changing that. And we'll go ahead and hit save. And your app should be connected to Firebase now. Next, we got a little bit more work to do on the front end. We got to create our login page. So we're going to first create another navigation stack. The login page is going to be on a different navigation stack than everything else. So I'm going to call it auth stack and set equal to create stack navigator. Next, we're going to do something called moving everything over and calling it a different component, which we've done multiple times in this already. So we're going to take this entire thing, not the navigation container, but from the stack navigator. Just copy that and paste it over here. And we're going to go ahead and save it. Oh, what's wrong here? Stack.navigator. Oh, it's the equal signs here. Go ahead, save that. Everything should be nice and cleaned up. And then right here in your navigator container, you're just going to type in screen. And everything should be working as expected. I just realized I do not have the app itself showing, so let me show that. And then everything should be working as expected. Next, what I'm going to do is create another screens, but this one's going to be called auth screens. And we're going to return the authStack.navigator here. And inside this authStack.navigator, we're going to add a screen, authStack.screen. And we're going to set the name of the screen equal to login. And the component, we're also going to equal to login. We haven't created this login component yet. And then right here, we're going to use state. So let's import use state from React. And we're going to have const is authenticated comma set is authenticated equals use state. And we're going to start with it for false because we don't want our app to be authenticated right off the bat. And right here we're going to have is authenticated question mark using the ternary operator. And if it's authenticated, we want it to display the regular screens, and if it's not authenticated, we want it to display the auth screens. Go ahead, hit save. So stuff's going to break because there is no login component defined yet. So for now, let's go to the screens folder, hit new file, and create login.js. And I'm just going to copy over a few imports from here. Actually, let me copy it over from another page. Alright, and we're not going to be using flat list. We will be using, no, we're not even going to be using touchable opacity. Yeah, we'll just be using text, view, and we'll also be needing a text input. Alright, I'm going to save that and do export default. We'll just return an empty view for now. Save that, and we'll go back here and import it. Import login from screen/login. Alright, that should go ahead and fix it. We should just see a blank login screen now. So the structure of the login page is going to be like this. We're going to have a header, which is going to be the title of the app. We're going to have a email field called email input. We'll have a password input. And then if this is the, so we're going to use the same login screen for both login and creating account. So if we're creating an account, we're going to have the password reentry input. It's one of those fields where you're making sure both the passwords match. And then we're going to have a little we'll call this login toggle. We're just going to have a little button that goes back and forth between either you're logging in or you're creating account. And finally, we're going to have the login button itself, login/create account button. So yeah, so for larger screens, I like to go ahead and just template it out like this. It makes it a lot easier in the long run. And then also I'm going to go ahead and copy some styles over. And we'll call this, give the view a style of styles.container. Go ahead and save that. And we'll start off with the easiest portion of this. We'll just make the header. It's just going to be a text. And we'll call it the name Fire to Do. And then we'll give it a style of styles.header. So you can see right here, styles.header just gives it a big font size, colors it red from our colors page up here, and aligns itself to center. So let me save that. You see Fire to Do. Next, we're going to have a bunch of inputs here. So we're going to put the inputs in their own view. And we'll just give it a style of flex1. Also, real quick, let me explain the styles for the container. It's just flex1, background color white, align item stretch, so it goes from left to right all the way, and justify content, as we've seen before, is space between. So it's going to put space between the actual components itself. So we're going to take the email input, password input, reentry input, and login toggle, and that's all going to be in here. And we're just going to have the button itself underneath. Now, if you remember, we already used a button in the edit page. Let me show you. In the edit list page, we already make this nice looking button. So what we're going to do is move that into a separate component. So I'm just going to create a file, button.js, and this is going to be in your components folder. Let's just copy over some imports. Say export default, return, and I'm going to go back to edit list, scroll down, and copy the touchable opacity down here. And hit save. And then we'll also get rid of any unused import. We're going to be having some styles, but we will get rid of view and text input. We're not going to need that here. I don't believe we're going to need use state here or common actions either. Clean it up. And then I'll copy over a few styles. Keeps the direction of the button to row, border radius 25, gets a default color of gray, height, margin, make everything nice and centered, and then something for the text. So the button's going to be getting a few props. It's going to be getting button style, text style, on press, and the text we want it displaying itself. So the style is going to be styles.button, and then button style passed in right after. And we're also going to give it the on press of on press. Get rid of all this junk right here. Go ahead, save that. And then for the text, we're going to change the style to styles.text. And then also pass in text style. And here we're going to put in text. And we have our nice little button. We can test that out right here in the edit list page. I'm going to go ahead and import button from /component/buttons. Oh, whoops, I named it buttons by mistake. Let me rename that to just button. Yeah. We'll update the imports, hit save on that. And just scroll down. Get rid of the touchable opacity right here and replace it with the button component we just created. So we're going to give it the text equals save. And we'll just copy over the on press from here. Get rid of all this. And close that up. Hit save. By the way, I highly recommend the formatter like Prettier. If you don't have that, go ahead and get that installed. It makes it a lot faster to not have to format everything manually. Super nice. And then let me go back to the app.js page and just set authenticated to true for now so we can test out to make sure the button's working in the edit list. So go ahead, click edit, change the color, and we still got our button there. Hit save and everything works. So we'll go back to app and set authenticated to false again so we can continue working on the login page. So we'll go back to login and we'll import button. Import button from component /component/button. And we'll get rid of this comma right here and put a nice button. And we're going to leave the on press empty for now. Set empty function. We'll add all the functionality there later. We'll give it a button style of background color. And we'll set it to red, or colors.red rather. And then we'll also give it the text of login. Save that. And we got our little login button at the bottom. And for the future, we're gonna add a quick use state and call it is create mode to distinguish between whether we're in the mode that's creating the account or in the mode that's logging in. Then we'll also set create mode equals use state false. We'll automatically have it to login mode. And then right here, we'll change the text of the button. If it is create mode, we're actually going to send create account. If not, it'll be login. So it's login right now. If I go ahead, set create mode to true and save that, it's going to show up as create account. So let's keep create mode for true now as we go ahead and create all these different inputs. So let's get started on the inputs. I'm going to copy these styles and I'm actually going to put the inputs in its own component called labeled input. Labeled input.js. Make sure I spell that right. Looks like it's spelled right. Copy over the imports and export default. Then return a view. Say that. Let me go ahead, copy over some styles. And we'll give the view the styles.container. Hit save. All right, so this component itself is pretty much just going to be a label. Let me put these in parentheses so everything looks clean. So this text input's gonna have a label just showing you what type of input it is, and then the input itself. So let's get started with the actual label itself. The label, we're also gonna have it show a error message in case the validation's off for the email or the password. We're going to view style equal, and this is going to be styles.label container. Is it not autofilling for me? Oh, that's why. Okay, so styles.label container just sets a flex direction to row and a margin bottom. And again, the container itself just has some padding and some margin. Nothing fancy, nothing special. And inside the label container, we're going to put in some text. And we're going to give it a style. And this style itself will pass in as a prop. We'll call it label style. And we'll just also need a label with the label style. The style, come on, whoops, not right there. Label. Okay, next we're also going to have the error message itself. Style equal to, here we'll do styles.error. We're not going to let anything from the outside change that style. And also we'll pass in an error message right here. And we'll also get that coming in from the props. And we'll also actually only show the error message if there is an error message. If not, we don't want to show anything. So we'll do if there is an error message. Shortcut for that is error message and. Then we'll do a star because the forms always, the error messages always have a little star next to them. And then we'll type in the error message. All right. So that's just a little label part of it up there. Next, we're going to add in the actual text input. The text input itself is going to be similar styles to what we've seen before. Underline color Android. We're going to set that to transparent. And we're going to set selection color also to transparent so nothing shows up when we click on it. And then we'll give it a style. We'll give it styles.input. Then we got to give it the outline none. This style right here is just because we're using the web render. You don't need this if you're only showing this on mobile. So we'll set the outline to none. And then we'll also allow anything using this component to pass on the input style prop. And we can take that in from the props up here. Next, we'll give it a value. Just call it text. Pull that in from the props as well. And we'll also do on change text because we want to be able to modify the text. And also pull that in from the props. And then we'll also get some generic input props using the spread operator and just pass on. So any props we don't manually pull out here, it's going to put into the input props, and we're just passing that directly into the text input component. So I'm going to go ahead and save all of this. We can get rid of the button import and the use layout and use state imports right here. Clean that up. And then we could go back to our login page. Whoops. Let me click there. And we don't need use layout effect here. We could get rid of the text input import, and we could import labeled input from /component/labeled input. So let's start with the email. Labeled input. We'll do label is going to equal email. Text is going to be empty for now, and so is on change text. We're not going to add anything there for now. And then we'll give it an error message. Again, keep it empty. Here, we'll just keep it like that for now. And then label style. Styles.label. Go ahead, save that. And you can see we have this email label popping up right here. Nothing's going to happen if we type in it because we haven't set up text or on change text quite yet. And if we go down here, label style is just a font size, creating it bold, and setting the color to black. And then we're also actually going to pass in a new prop we haven't seen before, and this is going to be called AutoComplete Style. So this is going to allow it to autocomplete it to an email if we pass an email right here. So let me show you how that works. I go back and click on this email. Oh, let me set up the text and email boxes first, actually. So go ahead, type const email field, because we're going to have more than a text pass from here. Set email field equals use state. And then default, we're going to have text to nothing. We're going to have error message to nothing. And the text for this is going to be email field. And the error message for this, or rather the text is going to be email field dot text, and the error message is going to be email field dot error message. And on change text, we're going to be getting some text from here. We're going to set email field. And it's going to have just the text passed in, which is going to clear out the error message every time we do on change text, because we're only going to have an error message showing when the user actually tries to click create account or login, and we'll show them whatever's wrong, and we won't let them log in or create account. Oh, what is this? Set email field is read only. Okay. Oh, whoops. What am I doing here? That's a function. Let's change that into a function. Nice. We're able to type in. Oh, it seems autocomplete style isn't. Oh, my bad. This is supposed to be autocomplete type, not autocomplete style. Email. Let me save that. And now it shows my emails when I go try to autocomplete it. So next, let's do the similar thing for the password input. I'm just going to copy this over down here and copy this over up here. Instead of email field, we're going to call this password field and set password field. And while we're up here, I'm also going to create a state for password reentry. Okay, go back down here. The label isn't going to be email. It's going to be password for the password. It's going to be password field dot text. We're going to be setting the password field. Just update it everywhere. And the autocomplete type is going to be password. Save that. We have a password field, and yet again we're going to copy this over for the password reentry. And we'll set the label to Reenter Password, and then update everything to password reentry rather than password. And we'll keep the autocomplete style password because there's no password reentry autocomplete. And actually, since we're having the user confirming the password here, we probably don't want anything to autocomplete. We probably want to make sure they're typing it out manually for the reentry password. So we got email, and we got password. And let's add in one more style for one more prop for the passwords to make sure they show up like password dots. So it's called secure text entry, and set it to true. And same for the other one. Now if we type in the password, it shows up as those little dots. Nice. So we have all the inputs working with their respective states right here. Next, let's go ahead and create the little toggle between login and create account. So I am going to import touchable opacity. Save that. And then we're going to create the login toggle. Touchable opacity on press. And we're going to basically set is create mode, or rather set create mode, not is create mode. So it's basically just going to toggle it back and forth. And inside we're just going to have a piece of text. I'll just go to quick style of align it self-center. We'll give it a color of blue. We'll do a font size of 16. And then we'll give it a little margin too. And inside for the text itself, if it's already in create mode, we're going to set the text to already have an account. And if you click on it, it'll switch. And if we're not, the text is going to be create new account. We'll save that. All right, so we have this little text showing up here. If I click already have an account, it's going to set it to login. If I click create new account, we're going to go back to create account. And also let me have this start in create mode false for now. Oh, also we want to hide the reenter password when it's in the login field. So let's go ahead and do that. Here we're just going to do is create mode and only if it's create mode, we'll pass in the labeled input and we'll render the labeled input for reenter password. Save. So it just asks for email and password and it's login. We click create account and it asks for email, password, and reenter password. So that is pretty much the basic UI for this done. Now we just got to go ahead and add functionality to validate these fields and actually pass it on to Firebase so we could create the account or log into the account. Let's start out with the validation. So we're going to be importing validator from that npm package we installed earlier, which is just called validator. And then let's go ahead and create a function called validate fields. Here we're going to take in an email, we're going to take in a password, and we're just going to be validating those fields. The password reentry itself doesn't need to be validated. We just have to make sure that it matches the password itself. And then we will do const error messages equals, and then we'll pass in the error message for the email and the password separately. Or rather, let's call this prompts, or we'll call it is valid. And we'll return is valid. Then here for email, we'll send the email is only valid if we go to validator dot is email. So that's why this library is super helpful. And here we'll just pass an email. So if it's a valid email, it'll say true. If not, it'll say false. Then next for the password, it's going to get a tiny bit more complex. We'll do validator dot is strong password. We'll pass in the password, and we can pass in a few options or a few rules. For example, we could set a minimum length. We'll set that to 8. We'll do min lowercase, so it has at least one lowercase character, and we'll do min uppercase, so it has at least one uppercase character. And we'll do min number set to 1, so it has at least one number, and min symbol set to 1, so it uses at least one symbol. So we have a nice strong password. We'll save that, and then let's scroll down all the way to the button. And for the on press here, we're going to start off by doing const is valid is equal to validate fields. Oops. And we'll pass in email field dot text and the password field dot text. Save that. And we'll also do let is all valid equals to true. So at the start, we'll assume everything's valid. And then if the email field or is valid dot email. So if the email is not valid, what we're going to do is we're going to set the email field dot error message is equal to please enter a valid email. And then we'll set the email field dot email field. Now you want to make sure rather than just passing in the error message, you want to pass it in like this, because one, this creates a new object and it'll actually trigger a re-render, and two, it'll make sure the text itself is preserved and not deleted. If you just update the error message without doing anything to the text, it'll just get rid of the text, and we don't want that. And right here, we'll also set is all valid to false. And then here, we'll check it to do a similar thing for the password. So if is valid dot password. So if the password itself is not valid, we're going to pass in the error message of password field dot error message is going to be set equal to password must be at least one word or 2 words. I always get confused. I'm going to assume it's 2. 8 long with numbers upper case, lowercase, and symbol characters. Hopefully that renders out well. That's going to be a pretty long password. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll do set password field dot password field. And is all valid is going to be set to false. And next we're going to do we're going to check if it's create mode first, because we're only going to have the password reentry field if it's create mode. So if it's create mode and the password reentry field dot text does not match the password field dot text, and we'll do password reentry field dot error message equals passwords do not match. Then we'll set password reentry field dot password reentry field, and we'll do is all valid, again set to false here. And then finally we're going to check if is valid, is all valid. And if everything is valid, we're going to, if it is create mode, we're going to call a create account function. If not, we're going to create a login function. Call a login function. What is all this random crap? Let me make sure that I didn't import something random. And then we'd probably want to pass in the email field .text, the password field .text to both of these so you can log in with the email and password. Okay, and we're going to have to actually go ahead and create a function for those. So create account equals email password has parameters. And we'll have it do nothing for now. And the same for login. Okay, so let's go check that out. So we're in the login page right here. Let's switch it to create new account. I'm just going to type in a random string of letters. We click create account. It says please enter a valid email because this is invalid, and also the passwords don't make sense. So let me go enter a valid account. And if you guys need any help or need to contact me, you can always contact me on akashbalaji.kumar@gmail.com if you have any questions about React Native. And now, if I hit create account, you see there's no validation for the email, but it's still showing the passwords wrong. So let me just create a password. I'll do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Very secure password right here. I click create account. Still nothing works, so let me make it a capital G and add a number, 1, and then a $. Now if I hit create account, it says passwords do not match, but the validation for the password itself is gone. That means that password works. So let me re-enter the password here, A, B, C, D, E, F, capital G, $1, I think it was, create account. And look at that, all the validation's gone, and we should be able to create the account itself now. It's not doing anything because we haven't actually set that up yet. So let's go ahead and do that now. And before we actually go ahead and give these any functionality, let's jump back to the app.js page real quick. And we're going to figure out how authentication works right here. How's it going to know if we're actually logged in or not? So first thing we're going to do is scroll all the way up, make sure we have Firebase imported, which we do. Next, you could scroll back down. Oh, also, we're also going to have to import useEffect actually. And let's scroll back down. I'm going to call useEffect. I don't know, I just populated it with all that random stuff and then pass on a function for useEffect. And useEffect is a function that pretty much is going to be run every time this is re-rendered, unless we pass in this empty list. It's a React hook. And if we pass in this empty list, it tells the hook to only re-render if any variables in that list we pass in change. And if we pass in no list, this function itself only runs once. So if you're used to old school React, this is like a component did mount. It just runs once in the beginning when your component mounts and does any setup work we need. So what we're going to do is we'll start with the if statement. And let's do firebase.auth. And it's actually a function. So firebase.auth with a double parentheses dot current user. So that's how you check who the current user is. So if you're not authenticated, there won't be a current user. So, but if there is a current user, we're going to do set authenticated is authenticated to true. And also we're going to have this setup function right here, which is firebase.auth. Again, don't forget the double parentheses, .on auth state change. So this pretty much sets up a listener for the authentication. So whenever there's some change in the authentication state in the Firebase library, it's going to trigger this function right here. And it's going to actually give us the new user who was authenticated. Or not just the user. We don't need to call it new user. And we'll do, just for my sanity's sake, I'm going to do a little logging right here so I can check auth state. So whenever it's checking that, it's going to print that out. And also we'll do if user So this works the same way as the current user. It only passes in a valid user if someone actually authenticated. So we'll do set authenticated. True. Else we'll set it to false. That means there is no user. That means someone probably logged out. It called this. And if they're logged out and there's no user, we don't want them to be able to access the app. We'll let everything reload. Again, we come back to the login page because we're not logged in quite yet. Now let's go back to our login screen, and we'll actually give functionality to log in and create account. So we're going to do that by, let's start with the create account first. And we're going to do auth. Or let me import this here first. Oh, nice, auto import. So imported auth from Firebase. Auth dot create user with email and password is the function we're going to use. And then we just pass in the email and password. And this itself returns a promise. So dot then. It's going to give us a user. Or it's going to give us a bunch of things, but we're just going to take the user from it. We're going to use object destructuring for that. And we'll do console.log creating user dot dot dot. Also, I'll do yeah, that's it for now, actually. So let's go ahead and see if we can create a user. So I'm going to do create new account, pass in my email. I'm going to send the password of A, B, C, D, E, F, capital G, $1. Reenter A, B, C, D, E, F, capital G, $1. And I'm going to hit create account. And there you go. We make it into the app and we have an auth state. And real quick, we have currently no way of actually logging out of this. So I'm going to go to home.js. And I'm going to update this render add list icon to have another button that's going to help us log out. So we'll do use style. We'll just give it a flex direction row. Oops. Get rid of that. Put that down here. And then in here I'll have another touchable opacity. And then we'll call this, we'll create a quick settings page actually. We'll call this settings. We don't need to pass anything into settings. And instead of the icon, we're going to have an ionicon. And then I'll just give the ionicon itself, well, let's call it size 16 probably. That should be good. And we don't need to set the color to white. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it should be just called settings. I don't know if it's something like cog or something, but we'll test it out. Let me save that. Okay, we have this ugly looking settings icon up here. Where did this all go? Okay, there it is. So I'm actually gonna have that render first. Hit save. And then I'm just gonna give the touchable opacity itself a style. And we'll call it centered. So like content center. And then I'll give it a small margin. Let me save that. How does that look? That looks slightly better. I'm just going to copy this over. The plus sign is really close to the edge, so I'll give it a bigger margin of 8 over here. Okay, that looks slightly better. It's a tiny bit off-centered, but I'm honestly not going to worry about that at the moment. So one more thing we're going to do is we already have navigation passed in here. So we're navigation.navigate to settings. So let's go ahead and create a quick settings screen. Call it settings.js. And I'm just going to copy the edit list over to the settings screen, and we're pretty much going to get rid of everything except for the button itself. Get rid of all of that. And let's import the auth from Firebase. So I'm going to import auth from Firebase. And that's actually supposed to be squiggly braces, not square brackets. And we're not really going to be using the navigation or root here at all. The button's just going to say log out. And on press, we're going to do auth dot, I believe it's sign out. Save that. We don't need any of these styles. Get rid of all this. And, oh, one more thing. Let me go ahead and actually just put this in a view. And give it a quick style of, we'll call flex 1. And a background color of white. Alright, and we just got to go back to our app.js. We'll copy this right here. Call it settings. And we'll also import settings from screens/settings. And we'll pass in the settings component. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now if we hit on that little settings cog, ooh, it's an error. View is not defined because I never imported the view from React Native here. Import view from React Native. Save that. Alright, we have this little logout button. And if we hit logout, we go back to this page. It logs us out successfully. Now let's go back to the login page and actually add in the login functionality. So it's going to be auth.sign in with email and password. And we pass in the email and the password. And then we're going to catch it with a dot then. And we'll just console, or whoops, we'll do console.log. Logged in. Little exclamation point. Let's see what happens if I try to log in. A, B, C, D, E, F, capital G, $1. Let's log in. And we're able to log in successfully, and that's our authentication flow completed. Our app is officially protected from hackers. So congrats. And if you enjoyed that video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below for almost weekly videos on React Native, Firebase, Expo, and anything to suit your mobile dev needs. Now, if you're looking for anything that I haven't covered so far, go ahead and leave it down in the comments below. I'll be quick to answer those. And hit that notification bell to stay tuned for part 4, where we can officially wrap all of this up by storing our data in Firebase's Firestore.